The next speaker is the one that does not need an introduction. So maybe without any further ado, I want to welcome Vaidas on stage, a co-founder of Agile Lithuania community and association, person who means a lot for me personally in my Agile career. So yeah, Vaidas has a lot of experience and a lot of experience not only in the local market but also international market. And let's see what he has got us to tell from his experience in Revolut and his recent experience in Uncapped. Vaidas, take it away.
Thank you, Laimonas. Hello, everyone. Some people are still coming. Good. So, how many? Quite a lot of you came to listen about unicorns. Do you know that they don't exist? Just checking. I have two daughters, so they have quite a lot of those at home. So at least they exist in their lives. But today I'll try to share my experiences and some insights and challenge you with some questions about unicorns, which are this buzzword for startups that are at least 1 billion worth. And still private companies, right? So let's get into that. So how many of these imaginable beasts are out there in real life in our world, in our planet? Who can guess how many unicorns are out there nowadays? 1,000. What the N thinks? Just guess. 5,000. A bit less. 2,000, between 1,000 and 2,000. 1.5, we are getting there. What the conference was, usually when I was organizing conferences, audience was energetic and answering questions. We'll get there, okay? So I'll promise I'll ask questions. It's much easier if you answer them, okay? Good. So we got to 1,500. By data, which I looked 2 days ago, it's 1,406 companies as of today. That's Crunchbase says so. I believe them, that they're private. So it's quite a few, right? Of course, it's not millions or thousands. There's probably in hundreds of thousands number of companies in the world, but at least quite a meaningful number. How many of those do we have in Lithuania? 2, good. Woo. Good, two of them. Vinted and Nord Security, they're on that list. One says to be 5 billion worth, another 2 billion. So, who is here in the audience from Vinted or Nord Security? 1. Good. So why the hell you are not on this stage? Next year, awesome. I would like to hear about this experience. I need to go to UK to live there, move all my family to have this experience and come back to tell it in Lithuanian audience. Please, help. Deal. Okay, so my assumption is if it's big company, unicorn, billion worth, they are usually way more than 500 people and plus. I mean, that's just a ballpark. So then, and it's usually digital companies, so they have, again, huge digital product teams. They should be using some kind of scaling framework or scaling solution to manage that scale, right? It's definitely not like one small Scrum team or 2 teams. So anyone have heard which Agile scaling frameworks they use? Today we had quite a bit of talks about that in the morning. Jürgen was on Fix, and then there is LeSS and others. Anyone heard of any unicorn using any Agile scaling framework? Custom. Common sense. They're not frameworks, but what Vinted is using? Custom building. Something, right? Yeah. I heard Spotify said that they are using the Spotify model at some point in their life. Gneberg wrote that article, but then he said, I don't want it to become a model, or everyone took it as a model. I was in LeSS conference. LeSS is its Agile scaling framework. I was in that conference 2 weeks ago. So we learned that PandaDoc, another unicorn, is using LeSS quite a bit. I haven't heard other companies what they use, including Revolut and Uncapped, which I tell, like Revolut does not tell that they're using some Agile framework. So that's what I want to share and challenge in this talk, maybe to discuss why and how and where we are with that. that's kind of my question, which I want to ask you today and then discuss it. Like, is it unicorns or kind of those high growth companies are so busy that they don't have time to think about frameworks? Why they're recreating the wheel, assuming some good info is already in those, right? Like why, you said they're using common sense or custom. What, out of 1,400 companies, we couldn't find some commonalities and create, for example, that one? I leave that as a question. Hopefully, at the end of this talk, can share the answer. So who myself? Lyman has nicely said I don't need an introduction, so just very quickly, I'll share today the experiences from Revolut and, Uncapped, the last company I was. Just for reference, I'm not working at Uncapped anymore. I'm the guy who changes the jobs a bit, but you'll hear my next gig soon. I was founder myself, and I've been in Agile all days. And as Lyman has said, I was founder of Agile Lithuania. I'm so amazed that 13 years in a row when I do nothing now, these conferences are still going on. So great job, Agile community, continuing. And yeah, we have Agile Coach, the consulting now company that helps answer your questions about Agile if you need. There is Agile Clinic there. So if you still have a question that you want to answer or chat with people about Agile, use that. Today, we don't charge. After today, the only way to get a free consulting is invite me or colleagues for lunch. It's cheap. It's much more expensive if you invite you to our office than we charge per hour. So that had to be a joke. I mean, I have to do something better than. Jürgen, crack some jokes. Do we have interpreter that can translate to Lithuanian to tell for people to laugh? Okay, let's move. So a bit of context. I'm not going to bore you with that. Just who knows what Revolut is? Who is lazy and is not raising their hand? Good, a few more. Yeah, we all know, some of us even use it, right? I had a chance to be responsible for Revolut business. Not everyone knows that Revolut also has business accounts. I didn't deal with the consumer side. I was dealing with our customers who are businesses. So the context I will be sharing is when I joined, we had about 200,000 customers, businesses. We doubled that and a bit more. Now it seems they have about 1 million. When I joined, Revolut was more than 1,000 people. When I left, more than 2,000 people. Nowadays, they are about 5,000 people. So just to understand the scope. The teams I will be talking about, or my team, or my department, was 70 people when I joined, and when I left, 150. So in a year and a half, we doubled the number of people. So again, just understand the scope where I talk. And it was distributed from day one. So we had people in different cities. We didn't have a chance to kind of sit and be co-located. So just for context. Who knows what Uncapped is? Wow, 2. Oh yeah, people who know me. I would be very surprised. It's a new startup. We were doing B2B loans, and I joined them to also create banking services. But that's not the kind of what you do is not so doesn't matter so much. I think the point is when I joined, we were about 10 people in product engineering team, and we grew it to 55. So again, in a year, we need to grow 5 times, which is a challenge for those who tried it. Plus, we were fully remote. We didn't have a single office. I am not going to touch that topic today in the talk. There is an article on LinkedIn. I wrote my experiences. So if you want, find me on LinkedIn and go to articles and you read about that. If you have any questions, I might answer, but I'll try to avoid this topic just to stick to the key one. Okay. So after this January, I sat down and thought, let's write down my experiences from these 2 companies, Revolut and Uncapped. And basically, that's, again, article on LinkedIn. Anyone read this? The $1 million question, how do you scale a multi-product business? 1, 2. So you are done. You can go now. I mean, I'm just talking about the same. Now, I'll dig a bit deeper. Those who want after the talk also, you can go to LinkedIn, find it, so something written. The outcome of all this is this structure. It's basically we have teams, which you see vertically, and we have kind of functional management, which you see horizontally. Throughout the talk, I will walk you through that. So it's just basically the picture of the structure we will get to at the end. So when I think about scaling, I always start about first asking the question, what do we want to optimize for? And that seems very trivial question, but in my life, it feels like this is one of the most important questions to ask. Why? Because especially with Agile, we very often want to be more effective, right? So if my team is doing whatever, 50 arrows a minute, if I implement Agile and I get to 60 arrows a minute, then Agile is successful, right? Why not? We increased productivity by 20%, so it's a woohoo. Question is, yeah, what's your goal? If your goal is to increase the arrows you launch, then you hit the goal. But very often the question is, did any of those arrows actually hit the goal, right? And that's a very kind of mindset thing to really start thinking and asking the questions. So I think Agile community was focusing a lot about this efficiency, which they call, how increase the throughput. And I think nowadays, thanks God and myself all the life, and especially as you'll see, unicorns are really focusing on, are we actually achieving it? If we actually decrease the efficiency, and if we just do 30 arrows a minute, but 5 of them hit the goal, maybe that's a better result than doing 50 and 0 or 1 hitting the goal, right? Where this comes from, or again, it's very nice to show like this. Every manager will agree with it, and then will still tell you to do what you do. Especially founders, like Nick Storonsky, probably you know, founder of Revolut, brilliant, smart guy. I worked with him directly, but also like you have that debate because you want to do more. So when I get to that discussion, I pick up this slide from, as you can see, Vilnius Tour 2010. Anyway, it's not my slide, it's borrowed from Marian Top Index. And I show this graph and say, look, guys, actually, statistically, there was kind of survey done that from any software, any products we create, only 20% of features are always or often used. Like, majority of stuff is not even used. Do you think my managers or founders of startups believe the statistics? Yes, no? Yes, no? No? Yeah, we're different, we're better. Then I ask the very simple question. Okay, great. Let's look at our product, whatever we created, and let's look how much of our existing product features or functionality actually are often always used. And surprise, surprise, very often this is the answer. By the way, about 8 years ago, when you ask that question, usually the answer is, we have no clue. Nowadays, we, I think, learned that we need to really start collecting this data and be looking at that. So last like 3 years, I didn't get the answer that we have no clue. But yeah, when we look, we really find the same. So then that's kind of the thinking. Can we believe that our goal is to hit the target, get something that people actually use, not to produce just more, like implement more. And again, looking backwards a few years, that's usually looking at your own product, whatever product company it is, it's quite easy to convince people about that. Okay, so you think that as a startups, we always focus on the outcomes, right? And it's never changing story. It would be good. It's not like that. For example, at Revolut, I joined in 2019. We were going to big decentralization, creating these local departments, small teams, decentralizing because we understood we want to be outcome focused. The only way to be outcome focused is to be cross-functional and decentralized. Great. Then 2020 comes. A, we raise our money and investors asks when you will be profitable. And B, what happened in 2020? Sorry? Sorry, what? Yeah. Why lockdown? COVID hits, so okay, what happens? No one knows, so we definitely need to get profitable, right? As a company of the goal. What happens when company decides to be profitable? Let's make it more efficient. And what efficient means? We want to be, in this case, break even. So if we have a copywriter now sitting in cross-functional teams, one in business teams, one in retail premium team, one in retail payments team, we put them to one central department. We fire 2 of them. And then we create a Jira kind of service desk. So if I, as a business, or my product owners need something from copywriter, we submit a Jira ticket, and then after a day or 2, wherever SLAs, you get thrown back amazing copy text that you could use. Do you think it worked well? Yes, no, maybe? No? Anyone believes yes? It did work for the goal of making company efficient. We did get break even in November that year. So again, the question is, what do you optimize for? If you want to get break even and you want to, as fast as possible, get down your costs, that's a good way to go. But why you said no? Why most of you said no, that it didn't work? Sorry? Delivery slowdown? No, actually they were very good in SLAs. They actually were fast. And why that's a problem? Someone said here, quality. When you get back that copy text, I read it, and even I don't understand what it's about. So, and my customers has to understand it. Because we're doing like business banking in this case, and you try, some of you who have never owned a company, write why you need to put receipts next to your transactions so that someone can take VAT out of it and do account filling and stuff, right? People didn't know about that so deep, so yeah, quality decreased. So again, once we switched back, and then again, decentralization started. So I guess that's my point to show that there's no you always need to always think what you're optimizing for, and if for some reason that's short-term, for example, costs, I mean, then agility and all the outcome-driven does not work because your goal is cost. So that's why in Agile, I'll always want to point out that ROI is usually the goal, return on investment, not to decrease or manage the cost. Very often, we try to optimize, and that's what you hear about startups doing, right? Increase the revenue versus decrease the cost, because then you still get your formula right? So there's two sides. Another example from Uncapped. So, as I said, we are doing business lending, but we also wanted to launch business accounts, like do transactions. Let's not get into details of that. But it's basically a new product we start from scratch. So first 2 sprints, I ask my teams, build as fast as possible, even if there is bugs. Why? Why we want to launch something very fast, basics? Fail fast. Sorry? Yeah, like because it's a basics, we want actually, again, we are startups, so we can learn by customers actually using it. So as faster we launch it through the door, the faster we'll get feedback, right? Then in stage 2, the next 2 sprints, sprint 3 and sprint 4, we say, let's look at actual data and start optimizing of it. Like, right, if someone logged in, what's the response time of the website? Maybe it's too big, so we optimize. Maybe in some corner case, there is a bug, we fix it. Or user experience is not the most, because you can sit down and plan for it and kind of build it very well from scratch, but actually you can ship it as soon as possible and then optimize basically based on bugs-driven development, or the kind of core issue-driven development. And then, once we did that, then of course we start, okay, if it's not the basics, look, why people would actually use our banking services, right? If there's just payment and card works, it's probably too little, right? So then we optimize for learnings. We really do customer interviews, understand the pains, gains, how we position the product. So what I'm trying to say here, that even in the kind of 9 months of a kind of product creation life cycle, also we can optimize for different things. What you need to do as product owner or manager, really be very, very clear about that to your team. Because if you don't communicate that to them, they say, why Vaidas? For 2 sprints you were talking about speed, then you start talking about quality, then you start saying that whatever we do, we need to understand the customer. I mean, so that's lots of communication you need to do. But again, everything coming back to the first question, what we're optimizing for. And I found that having that discussion both with managers and with your team is super, super helpful. So to finalize, I think execution is usually what you build multiplied by how you build. And I believe that what is way, way, way more important. So I put a square there if you can see, right? Because if you really focus what you build, you can get much, much more outcome oriented. Okay, so we agreed what we build. Second point is super trivial. Is there anyone in the room, okay, I'll ask opposite, who believes cross-functional teams is the way to go? Oh, there is still someone not raising the hand? Someone does not believe that cross-functional teams is the way to go for the future? Sorry, I'm not challenging that. I think cross-functional teams is the way to go. Everyone should have raised their hands. We can talk about later why you're not raising hand. So I'm not going to tell too much about that. I'm just trying to actually to say that even that's not always trivial. If you ask, for example, founders of startups, they, especially when you grow, they start saying, oh, you need to create these functional departments and functional teams. So then I ask them this question: what structure was the most fun and efficient which you worked on? So if you ask a startup founder this question, what they will answer, even if now it's unicorn, it's a huge company. Exactly, if you remember, small one that fits in one room. If you look like pictures of Google guys starting in the garage, or like Apple's guys, Steve and Wozniak and Jobs starting somewhere. Small team, it was fun, everyone was doing everything. That's exactly a cross-functional team by definition, right? The problem is when you grow the company, you cannot sit in that one team. That's a problem. Of course, if you're working for the company that your manager has never was in startup, this question is a bit irrelevant. I still didn't find a question that they could answer about that, because they usually have never worked in a team that's really fun, unless in a home life. So again, you can ask if you're kind of working in corporate and your manager has never had that experience, have you created some project at home, or I don't know, something that you loved. So yeah, this is a team of my startup, and I had VoroPay. We still are good friends. One of those probably you even can find in this room still. So if that's an amazing place to work, what if we create lots of these types of organizations, and that's our startup, or startup within startups, right? So all the idea, and actually as you'll see why Revolut is fast, that's driven by that idea, how you create lots of startups within startup that kind of have a bit of the same vibe and the same energy and passion, right? And again, why it's so important, you can read there's lots of words on the text, on the slide, but basic system thinker says that you have to first create culture, and only then, structure, and only then culture will follow. So what I'm trying to say, we often want, oh, let's make people engage, let's people kind of make sure people are motivated, but they still work in some kind of, for example, functional organization, but organized cross-functional teams. As you'll see here throughout the talk, I challenge that if you create really these small startups within the company, that will drive the right then attitude and culture will come that they will want to act as a startup. So first create structure, culture will follow, or will lead that. Okay, so we have the goal, we have cross-functional teams. This is point 3, which is the most challenging. My colleagues at Agile Coach, we had a good discussion about that. They said, this is Vaidas a bit fishy. We still have discussions about this. From what I learned, I'm pushing basically that product owners should not be only good product owners by definition of Scrum Guide, kind of the basic Scrum, which, by the way, is super hard to do. It's still a very, very hard job. But I usually demand even more from a product owner. I want them to be kind of a visionary, a leader, so be able to communicate the company vision and be a line manager of the team. Why? It's against the rules, by the way. Scrum Guide says don't do that, please. Because I'm thinking about that little startup. A CEO, I mean, you are line manager of first 5, 10 employees anyway, right? That's by design. And somehow, as a startup founder, you don't complain that, oh, how the hell I can manage this engineer because I don't know anything about engineering, or how I can manage the salespeople, but because I'm maybe a business guy, right? You somehow figure it out. So if you create a structure that product owner is really like that mini CEO of mini startup, and you give them that authority, good things will happen. Why my colleagues challenge me, because from an Agile coach in the right manner, if you get wrong people here, wrong things will happen. You can have a CEO of a startup which is micromanager, trying to see what everyone is doing, and that usually is not bringing the best growth, and right. So it does not protect from having the wrong people in the place. And the reason why we kind of have this mantra, kind of I think have this a bit, what's the word, kind of. Anyway, why we think it differently is that we think that alignment is opposite autonomy, right? If we want alignment, then we need to tell what to do. And if we don't tell what to do, then it's kind of autonomy. And Henry Knieberg, which I borrowed this example from, says maybe it's a bit different. Maybe we can put them actually on 2 axes. You can have lots of alignment, or low alignment, and low autonomy or high autonomy, right? And then you have 4 squares. If you're on low autonomy and low alignment, this is boring. Probably let's not talk about that. Hopefully no one is there. What usually happens with management, they want to get alignment, right? That's the job of manager, align. So what you do, you say, we need to cross a river, go and build a bridge, right? How we could move this team more to the right so they would be high alignment and high autonomy? What this manager should do or should change in that example? Exactly, look. You could come to the stage. Good. Yes, you need to cross a river, figure out how, don't tell them. Ideally, I would add, give them constraints. If there is only one person needs to cross a river a day, what the solution could be? Maybe a boat, maybe a rope, right? There is many other ways. Maybe you don't need a bridge, because maybe it's just one person a day, so there's other ways, right? What I found more agile teams do, which is super bad, they go to this quarter, this side, kind of this. You know, everyone wants to be autonomous. We want to create autonomous teams, you know, autonomy, mastery, purpose, drive. This is those who read that book. And then as a management, things like, yeah, we have 5 Scrum teams running around. Is any of them working on the River project? Oh, you know, they're having fun. So I'm seeing so much Agile implementation when we push so much for fun bit versus the actual, again, outcome driven. So you have to have that balance. Okay. So just a bit of examples how I actually managed to get this in practice. At Revolut, it was very strong KPI-driven culture. So we had company-level KPIs, then you drive them to department, and then to the team level. And most importantly, it was numbers-driven. So it was always SQL, those who know, a query that goes to database and gets the answer in numbers, right? And that was very often business numbers. So, you know, as a team, we knew that we need to improve this metric, and it's visible, and it's updated automatically, so you never need to ask the question, you look at the dashboard and look at that. That's how you get these kind of teams really accountable kind of to that result which you agreed. Of course, we did something wrong, I believe, because we attached bonuses to that KPI structure. You know, you get a formula, and part of that formula, how you finish the quarter, it depends how much extra cash or shares in our case you will get. Why it's bad? You always, I mean, it's very hard to correct formula within the quarter because, again, we want to lock it. But yeah, then gaming started. Then people start defining KPIs in a game way to get the bonus, not to achieve what you wanted, because things change. So I think, again, very good to have it, very bad to attach directly to KPIs or any incentive structures. On Uncapped, I think we did it a bit better. We used, again, OKRs, just a different way of phrasing that. Objectives were company levels. We actually made them by design cross-department. So actually different teams has to cooperate or departments. And key results, again, were business-driven, that are numbers, so we know are we achieving it or not. You know, how many arrows we want to hit the target. That's kind of the type of number we're always looking at. And we use that as alignment tool. Are those 6, 10 different startups within startup aligned towards one goal versus performance management tool? Make sense? I see you have one question. Let's leave it for the end, okay? I'll finish, but keep on it. Don't forget. Write it down, okay? Just let's finish, because then we'll get to questions. Okay, so we've done that. So in this structure, if I'm an engineer, or if I'm a designer, or product ops person, like how I will increase my design skills, right? Or how the hell, as a super engineer, I will report to some product owner, right? How to deal with that. So for that, you have this functional still managers. I think you need that. You cannot forget about them, because you need to that. And you need that for 3 basically reasons. 1, for hiring. So you do, of course, those people do skills interviews. 2nd, for personal development. So they have their own one-on-ones to talk about the technical stuff and whatever the skill is. And basically, that means that every person actually has 2 one-on-ones. One was line manager, product owner, and one was functional manager. And then we even share performance reviews and promotions. So it's basically 50-50 shared. Yes, line manager is HR original manager, kind of manager, but you share that with functional manager. That's how I think we got the balance right. And we talk about scaling. So what happens when you grow, and as you remember, I started with 10 people, then you have 20, then you have 30, then you have 50. You need to split the teams, right? So very simple algorithm. You hire it to existing team. When teams becomes too big, which in our terms means more than 9 people, you split it to 2 teams and then hire people towards those, right? Simple? Everyone can do that? Sorry? No, when I say product, I mean, you'll see in the picture, we have product owners, designers, engineers, product operations. Engineers can be back-end, front-end, iOS, Android, all cross-functional skills needed to build. So, anyone can get this wrong? Oh yes, I did also. At Revolut, first, I was so keen about co-located teams. So I thought, oh, we're launching new products. How about we hire for, I think I remember if I correctly, payroll team in Vilnius, and then for US expansion team in Berlin, then the rest we keep these kind of distributed. And it didn't work, because those people, even if they were cross-functional teams sitting in one room and going for lunch, and about product they knew a lot, but they did not, it was very, very hard for them to understand all our other organization, how it works, what kind of tools and processes to use. So we very, very quickly switched back to having distributed teams. Second, which I repeat doing it, I'm sure many of you are doing it, splitting teams too early. Oh, we just hired a product owner. Because you cannot kind of balance hiring so well, right? Okay, we need to create a new team for him. So let's have a team with product owner and two, like one engineer maybe or two, and then another small team. And you realize that now you have 70 people, and actually you have like 20 teams already, right? So I really worked with myself hard to make sure that I split the team only when it's more than 9 people. And that's for me a golden rule, because it's better to give different work for the same team versus to split it early. I'm sure I'll make this mistake a few more times, but just a reminder. So next time when we meet on this stage, you guys can ask if I made this mistake for the last 12 months again. And the last bit, basically, if you have those startups of startups, so how you align them to work, right? So it's nothing too secret. As we'll see, we use lots of kind of LeSS thinking here, but LeSS is a scaling framework. We had weekly prioritization sessions, so basically all product owners, every week we're reviewing one company level backlog. So despite how many teams we have, we're looking at one backlog and change if needed priorities and share what we're doing. As we were always design focused, user experience focused, we always has design review, because we believe design user experience has to go first. So we learn what's going on and what's changing. And then, as normal, we would do demos and retrospectives and operational kind of meetings. Just to be clear, this is a second level type of meetings. Every team has its own kind of, they are doing Scrum or Kanban or whatever, so they have their own ceremonies, and this is on top kind of as the next level of synchronization. And actually it worked pretty well. I think if you look at Revolut as a product, you kind of get quite unified experience, right? You don't find that behind that app, even on consumer side, actually about 300 people and about 40 teams are working behind the scenes, right? We managed to create that unified experience. What you need to get it really right, and this is again a few just advices. I really love this book, Radical Candor, because if you really want to get it right, if you really want those CEOs to align, you really need to make sure that we are open and okay to talk about issues and challenge, even myself as Chief Product Officer, and say, Vaidas, we should do something differently. Because very often, people say yes, yes, and then, you don't get that juices and that experience. But to do that, what I learned, for example, at Revolut, we were so focused on results. KPIs only, results focused, so always thinking about that. And then I learned the 5 dysfunctions of the team book and realized what I was forgetting. This book claims, by the way, it's fables, so it's very easy to read. So if you haven't read it, please do. It's really fun reading. That there is 4 layers below, which first starts with trust, that you need to spend time to build trust within team. Then they can actually be open and tell you what you're doing wrong or what colleague is doing wrong, to have these good conflicts, which this book talks about, and then you get commitment and accountability. So in longer term, I found that just focusing on results is not the best strategy. Actually, a better strategy is to build these 4 layers below, and results will be outcome of that work. So just a reminder how, again, on the management level, for example, what I was focusing on. So that kind of goes to this structure which I showed at the beginning, basically. You can see here we have teams. They are named by some area of the product they support. In this case, credit product, revenue-based financing. Then we split out a new team. So blue, in this case, is, for example, a new team. So this was split. And for example, here we split in 3 areas. So they are run by product owner, which is basically the line manager, as I discussed. So he or she is a little CEO. I'm CEO of that startup. Yes, I need to align with ourselves and with company's vision, but I need to line manage and be more than just product owner by Scrum. And we have functional managers or kind of leaders on that side, which then we work on functional level. As you remember, splitting that 50-50. Me, as kind of manager of this team, kind of this whole organization, my team is all product owners and all functional managers. So we are, as a team, doing those meetings that I just showed and aligning to that. This scaled for me in Revolut to 150 people, so about 17 teams. In Uncapped, it was a bit less. So we will see. So my question, coming back to this original question, where we're using LeSS or some other framework. So I just picked LeSS as an example, and I copy-pasted the next 3 slides, basically the website, which has 3 main areas: structure, product, sprint, marking, which I think we did not do well. So again, I don't expect you to read all this because it's just copy-paste from website. Just visualizing what LeSS says. Out of all structure things, our team was not co-located. So we were failing less, as Jürgen also pointed out today, because we're distributed and uncapped, we are fully remote. And we didn't have long-lived teams because actually every team, for example, like had at Uncapped, less than 2 months was split because we were just growing so fast. So you cannot have long-lived teams just for that reasons. And of course, Jürgen mentioned other reasons, people might move around and all that. So I think, and we discussed that maybe this should not be written as black and white, so we didn't do that. At Revolut, we didn't have Scrum Masters at all, so product owners also did that part of work, and I think that was where it was a bit too much. That's why we sometimes failed on processes. At Uncapped, once we got more than 3 teams, we started hiring, we hired first Scrum Master, so I think we were getting that balance. And again, that's what LeSS actually advises, not to have Scrum Master for each team and not to have product owner for each team if you read LeSS, which I find kind of working pretty well. On the product side, again, we did everything except that LeSS says you have to have 1 product owner and 1 product backlog. So we have 1 product owner, which was me, like chief product officer. Still, we had product owners in teams, so we are failing that a bit. And we had 1 product backlog, which is kind of company level we always looked at. Yes, teams still made their own backlogs, just as a derivative to work on day-to-day basis, which LeSS says you don't need to do that, but we kind of, other stuff we did. And last, LeSS as a framework says you have to have this planning, sprint planning 1 session, which kind of all teams plans together, the first part, and then they split. We kind of didn't do that. I think this road mapping session was enough for me because then teams were really knowing what each other is doing, so at least we didn't get that. So my point is that we were doing quite a bit of LeSS, basically, without knowing it, right? That's kind of the to wrap it up, are we too busy inventing new things? I kind of feel we are. I kind of feel that 10 years ago or wherever when I was standing on this stage, I was telling to people, look, if you really want to try Agile, which in that case means Scrum, so maybe take it and learn it, by the book as the kid learns to play music instrument. I know everyone believes they want to be a jazz player and, to do a bit of jazz. Maybe something does not work for me. I can tweak retrospectives or not to do planning to do a different way. So be kind of this jazz team. But I think, you need to start from basics. So for me, kind of a bit of advice would be, I think, lots of these high growth companies actually figuring out those custom solutions themselves. If you actually look, they're using 90 or 95% of what was already written. And learning that probably is a good step. So as a summary, LeSS is very well suited for scaling organizations because their mantra is less is more, less management, less processes, which works very well. It seems like many unicorns, at least the ones I talked to, I was in, using structures similar to that. And I think this is a huge opportunity to save time from learning and creating something yourself, maybe taking out of the book, learning how to do it right, like that kid, learning how to play instrument, and of course then changing when needed because contexts are different. So thank you for today. I hope you have questions. I know at least we have one. But kind of my challenges for next Agile Tour, I hope we'll have more experience to share how actually, for example, Nord Security or Vinted in Lithuania and other high growth companies really. I'm sorry if you're coming from a big corporate world. Some of these might not be applicable because sometimes you cannot change structure. but I still would lead with that advice. Try to change the structure first, and then things will follow, as I wrote in that. And then see how far you can go to these ideas here. Because yes, something is constrained by the big kind of corporate structure, and you cannot change it. Thank you. I'll go for questions.
Vaidas, thank you for sharing. So I have actually two questions, not related. The first one was, you mentioned alignment tool. Could you elaborate on that one?
You mentioned?
Alignment tool. There was a slide about alignment tool.
Alignment between teams?
Probably.
So
It just said alignment tool. What was the tool?
sorry.
Go back
Yeah,
a
yeah.
bit more.
More.
Yeah, there, the last bullet point.
Oh, sorry, I used the tool in the word that OKRs or KPIs or kind of this number-driven goal setting should be for the reason to align many cross-functional teams, so that's little startups kind of go the same direction, versus as a performance management tool, which very often it gets. We need to set KPIs so that after 3 months we would know who does well. I mean, that's a very different reason, and I'm trying to point out that even that mental trick is really important to change.
Thank you. And question number 2 is, you mentioned split teams when they grow to number 9.
Yeah.
Any general rule how to do that? So
mean
that
in
you
splitting?
don't step into any shit? I mean, like, you know, you reach the team size of
Yeah.
9,
Yeah.
and then you realize that, okay, we have more, like we are, like now, I don't know,
Yep.
14, we need to split somehow. So
Yep.
how do you make the decision how to split the team? So for example, I don't know, is it based on components, sub-products of the product which you could identify? What is the general tool?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, good question. And I think it goes a bit to even what Jürgen said is right, and Les kind of talks about the same. At the beginning, it's, if you can see, we really split by kind of customer values. So if you want to call a team a startup, then they need to believe, like, I'm a payment startup. Like even companies that are just doing this payments, or just credit, or just kind of onboarding for. So really trying to give them this value stream. But then at some point, for example, even at Revolut, we already created, for example, this platform team, right? As they talk, because they need to just provide services and tools so that development would be faster. So you start thinking about customer value, so then it's real startup, they really want to be that. Or as a startup, I'm a technology company to serve other startups within my team, which again, as an API or through that. But always think through customer perspective, but your customer can be outside or within the company. Cool, good questions.
What a coincidence, we have one question online that is very well fitted to this question.
Yes, so I'm going to read it. Splitting teams when they are too big is obvious, but what about other way around? How to know when it's time to downscale the team?
Do you mean decrease to fire? I'm trying to understand. What do you mean downsize? Like to fire people, or? I mean, the simple rule is just pure math. We make it very simple. If your team is more than 9 people, for example, 10, you have to, as I answered that question, start splitting it. So it will be 5 and 5. Now, do we really need capacity and hire more for extra people? That's up to you. But I mean, again, if you have 10, still keep one. But my point was avoid having a lot of small teams, which I kind of get to that habit that, oh, you know, we are going to hire 10 more engineers, so let's start splitting now. And you know, it's delayed and stuff. As I said, like we hire product owners, so we kind of create a team because we hired product owner versus that actually we have now enough people to have 2 normally kind of functional teams. So my answer is that if you have 15 people, yes, please split the 2 teams, because 15 people don't work effectively together.
So there's another one then. How to avoid local optimizations in startup teams within a startup?
Yeah, that's what we discussed even with, as I said, my colleagues, and I think these things helped us to solve it. So A, agree that those leadership teams, those all product owners with functional managers are a team, and work using these tools to build that. So one, like I, as a payments product owner, I should not be myself and just do whatever I want. I am in this alignment. And again, in startup world, it's quite easy to use that comparison. Even Nick Storonski has to reply to his investors, and he has a board. So even a CEO of a startup, you still are constrained by external environment. You're not like the God, which I can do anything and everything. So the same here. these in the structure product owners and these head of functions, we need to become a really good and unified team so that no one in the structure would think that, oh, my product owner says this is priority, but my functional manager says priority is different. That's kind of the worst part of, or problem of matrix organization. Because usually these managers are sitting in different departments in matrix organization, and that's why they have different goals. But if we do this as one team, then we come with one message to the team member and we solve that problem.
A round of applause to Vaidas.
Thank you.
If you haven't had the chance to ask the question, which I kind of assume that's the case, catch Vaidas in the lobby. You don't have 5 minutes for that, you have the whole evening, but you have 5 minutes before the next speaker, and it's a nice continuation because Bob will speak about build your own scaling framework. All right? So in 5 minutes, we're gonna start here. This is the Menti code for Vaidas' speech. Don't forget, we have prizes for the feedback provisioning. And Vaidas, we have some thank you in form of present.